I am excited to get started. So again, thank you for joining us. We are here today with Sally Sorte, who is an executive consultant with Academy 360. For today's webinar, essential tips for starting and managing a successful nonprofit. I'm Paula Matano. I'm a program manager with professional and continuing education here at Oregon State University. And I am on campus, so you guys might hear the bells chime in just a few minutes. Sorry about that. We're going to get started. This is going to be a quick, about 30-minute webinar, so I'm happy to have you guys join us. A few housekeeping items before we jump in. This session is being recorded and will be available for viewing within 48 hours. Please feel free to chime in with questions throughout. There's a questions box that you can just chat them to me, and I'll ask them to Sally throughout her presentation as well. If you guys have questions that we didn't get to at the end, we do have a record of them so we can track them and answer them in the follow-up email that'll go out. So our agenda for today's webinar, I'm going to briefly introduce Sally. After her presentation, I'm going to go over our upcoming nonprofit management certificate that we are launching here at Oregon State University. And Sally is actually one of our instructors, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to talk a little bit about our program benefits, give you our contact information in case you guys have any questions that you'd like to follow up on. And also, attendees for today's webinar are going to be given a 10% discount code that's good for any of the classes or the entire certificate for the nonprofit management. Okay, so now I would like to introduce Sally Sorte. Sally is the founder of Academy 360, a public charter school in Denver, Colorado, where she served as the executive director for 6 years. And she's recently transitioned to an executive consultant role, which is focusing on finance and governance. Prior to this, Sally worked in education through Teach for America and also spent time working for Google. She is currently a guest lecturer in social entrepreneurship at CU Boulder and Colorado College. She writes for RealClearLife.com and is a facilitator for New Politics Answer to College Leadership Program. I'm so excited to have her here with us. So without further ado, Sally, please take it away.
All right, wonderful. Well, it's great to meet you all, and I'm excited to tell you a little bit about Academy 360. So Academy 360 is a public charter school in Denver, Colorado, and I moved to Denver about 6 years ago to start the school. And I was just going to give you a little bit of an overview of my process and then open it up to questions. Does that sound good?
That sounds great. Thanks, Sally.
Awesome. So founding a charter school is a unique and challenging process. So you start out by crafting an actual charter, so a written document saying what you plan to do with the school. And the vision of Academy 360, as you can see in some of the photos, is to serve students from a variety of backgrounds and to help them close their achievement gaps and then also address other issues of poverty. So our school 360 means a whole child approach, addressing mind, body, and character. And it was something that I had seen as a need when I was teaching for America in Hawaii, is that even if students were getting their academic needs met, they also needed to have their whole child needs met. So they needed to have nutrition and healthcare and a safe home and all of those things as well in order to succeed. And so that's really where the vision of Academy 360 was born. And the idea that we can't just focus on academics, that we're whole children, and we need to think about our social emotional needs, mind, body, and character. And so through the process, we spoke with a lot of different students and families. We knocked on doors to talk to families about what their dreams were for their children. We went to parks, libraries, anywhere where we could connect with our families in the neighborhood of Montbello. So that's a neighborhood in Denver, Colorado that was hit pretty hard with the housing crisis. And so, a lot of low-income families from a variety of backgrounds and just a lot of need there. So it's also a food desert. The only place to get groceries is 7-Eleven, and there just aren't really a lot of other resources. And so we saw as a school there to be an opportunity to offer those resources. We could become sort of a network of community resources and help families access everything from language education to fresh fruits and vegetables to, preschool through fifth grade education, which is what we grew to offer, and that over the upcoming years. So a charter school is a free school. It's a public school. There's no, application to get in. There's no tuition. And so it's very similar to the other public schools in the neighborhood, except that you're given more autonomy. So you can choose your curriculum, your hiring practices, and you're also then charged with teaching families that you exist. So students aren't automatically enrolled. They have to choice into your school. And so we opened in the fall of 2013 with kindergarten through second grade. We opened in a wing of a church in old Sunday school classrooms. And so that was our first founding facility. And then grew year by year, adding a grade level. And then in our third year, moved to a more permanent facility and converted an office building. And so now the school is preschool through fifth grade. And, we've continued to build out those community resources that I was mentioning earlier. We have several community partners that share space with us. We do a lot of other wraparound services. We're always looking for new opportunities to partner, anything from, we partner with the Finish Line Foundation to build a playground through Kaboom. And so hundreds of community volunteers and family members came together and we built that in one day. And we also offer a lot of different classes that families have indicated interest in. So things like financial literacy, English language classes, and so forth. And so that's kind of like the quick overview of what a charter school is, what Academy 360 is. And I wanted to leave a lot of room for questions. I'm happy to speak more to any aspect of that, from finance to, I guess I should say also that a charter school is a nonprofit. And so we're able to apply for foundation funding. We have to raise a lot of funding every year to supplement the public funding that schools get, because, Colorado is kind of on the bottom end of the per pupil revenue that schools get. So if we're to look at that across the 50 states, Colorado is pretty low. But even the states where it's higher, the schools are still at a challenge for funding, and so rely a lot on foundation funding. And that's a big part of what my role was, is to develop those relationships and raise funding each year. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what people have questions on, what they're more interested in learning about, and we could go from there.
Awesome, thank you. So one of the questions that's come in is sort of, how did you go about finding the seed funding to get started with the school?
Yeah, sure. So there's a variety of seed funders, one of which is it's actually federal funding that then comes through the state. And so that funding is, we got through the Colorado Department of Education and was specifically focused on your founding year, so that year after authorization by the school board and before you open your doors, and then your first 2 years. And we were able to get almost $250,000 each year. And that could only go towards specific things. So it went towards non-consumable, so things like furniture, books, et cetera, that you plan to keep for a very long time, technology. We were able to put it towards a little bit of startup salaries, but they're really looking at those non-consumables primarily. And so that's open to a lot of different states. And then also the Walton Family Foundation gave us a $250,000 startup grant, and that's partially because Denver is one of their focus areas. So they also have focus areas across the U.S. That they have identified as, being of particular need based upon the educational metrics and achievement gap data. And then local foundations as well. And so we partnered with Colorado Health Foundation because we had this particular focus on health and wellness. And so we were able to get some startup funding from them as well. And that helped us to integrate. It's from CDC, and it's the Coordinated School Health Model, or Whole School, Whole Child, Whole Community Model is the latest name for it, for incorporating all of those elements of health and wellness, from staff wellness to community engagement to social emotional wellness, physical activity, nutrition, et cetera. So those were a couple of the startup funding areas. And what I recommend to other people who are looking for startup funding is to actually look at the websites of other nonprofits that are in their same, if it's other schools, or, if you're looking at serving animals, other ones that are in your same arena. and see where they get their funding from, because that's a great way to see who is currently funding that space.
Awesome, thank you. What percentage of your funding would you say is from grants?
It's still relatively low, maybe about 10%. We do rely primarily upon federal funding, and so that's the per pupil revenue, local funding sources like the levies or title funds, which are distributed through the federal level. So during the startup phase, it was certainly higher than 10%, but now that we're in more of a sustainable operation phase, year by year, you look to decrease that so that a change in, a funder wouldn't severely impact your organization. So yeah, earlier on, it would have definitely been more like 100% before the school opened, and then in the early years, probably between 25 and 50%.
Awesome, thank you. So what's your biggest, as an outsider to nonprofits, so somebody's wondering if they don't have any work experience in a nonprofit, what would you say is a good way to sort of break into that field or get started working in a nonprofit?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you have a specific passion, I would say to follow that and to look for organizations that are already serving that clientele or are working on that issue, and to start out as a volunteer. That's a great way to get to know an organization. And if you have a specific talent, maybe in a different area, such as marketing or legal, or you're just willing to be boots on the ground and help with fundraising or mailers, or any of the stuff that takes person power in a nonprofit, you can start by volunteering, and then as you get to know the nonprofit, if it's something that you are really passionate about, you could become a board member as well, which is a volunteer position and is the governing body of the nonprofit. And so that's a great way to get some real valuable experience. And then as you build those relationships, you'll quickly see that if they're looking for someone, they might look towards you, since they already know you and you know the organization, and you probably started doing the work as a volunteer.
Awesome, thank you. And another person's asking, so they're working for a watershed council here in Oregon. And just so you guys know, Sally is an Oregon native, so she's familiar with a lot of our region. They're looking to approach some large trust organizations for a big ask to fund these programs. Can you talk a little bit about the process you went through and the steps you completed to get the big ask, knowing that fundraising has a lot of steps and components that lead up to it?
Yeah, sure. So again, relationships first here. It's really important to find out who is the program officer and who are the decision makers within that organization, and to start making that relationship. And so you can sit down for a coffee and just start with an informational interview to learn about the organization and to tell them more about what you're looking for, because funders are regularly going through recalibration of their strategic plan and redeciding their funding areas. And so it's good to know, their website might not even be fully up to date. And so you can start to get to know what sorts of things do they fund, what's the average grant size. I'm very direct when I ask those questions. I don't skirt around the issue of money. I will ask, what's the largest thing that you funded? If it were a school of this size, what kind of grant size would we be looking at? Because that really helps you to know what's the likelihood of this funding, and is it worth your time to go after? The larger the ask, the longer it takes to build that relationship. You might be looking at, a year of lead up time, depending on what their grant cycles are like. And, they might say, I've already committed all my funding for this spring, but let's talk next fall. And they're happy to help you with those conversations as well. Some grants and funders are looking to see that you have other funders also lined up. And so perhaps in-kind donations, or that you've partnered with other foundations and they're not the only person with skin in the game on the project. And so that can be one way to go about it. And then also I recommend talking to other people who have received funding from them as well. And so you can find out what process they took and if they had any recommendations for how to get your foot in the door.
Awesome, thanks, Sally. And then I'll just wrap up with this last one, and this is kind of a nice lead-in for what our certificate is going to be all about, which I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes as well. So how did you navigate all of the infrastructure required for nonprofit management, sort of 501c3 status, and writing the bylaws and all of that, while also developing the core components of your school. So how do you balance that? Especially, I know when you first got started, it was you doing the bulk of this work. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, that's one of the great things about this work is that you get to learn a lot about a lot. And of course, there's also the challenges that come with that. And just remembering that all of these things existed before. And so you can reach out to other organizations and ask for their bylaws, or you can just do a quick Google search and get a standard set of bylaws. And so then sitting down, you're going to want to recruit someone with legal expertise onto your board. And so ideally it's someone who, this is exciting to them because maybe they haven't done it before. And so they might help you to tailor your bylaws to your organization. Things like 501c3, that would be another area where a board member can help you with that application. That said, you don't want your legal advice to be a board member forever. This is just really during kind of that startup phase. Eventually you will want to make sure that you're paying for legal counsel to, cross all your T's and dot your I's. But yeah, so using your board and seeing what are the needs that you have within the first couple years might change the type of board that you recruit, and that might change over the next couple years as you move to more of an operating existing organization. And then also volunteers. People are always willing to help other people, and so find leaders of similar organizations and ask them the questions that you have. Even if they're just 1 or 2 years ahead of you, they're going to have a lot of great ideas for how to surmount the challenges that you're facing.
Awesome. And I got one more for you, Sally. So this person doesn't have anyone with fundraising experience on their board, and they're wondering if it would be, what do you think? Would it be better to send one of their existing board members to training, or to try and recruit a new board member that has fundraising experience?
I would say both. Because it can be really important that you have a board that can help you fundraise, but at the same time, there's nothing that can replace that experience of someone who is comfortable, doing direct asks for money, who knows how to do an event that actually brings in revenue, and doesn't just take a lot of time to plan. So, I would say go for both, and so that way you can kick off your fundraising as soon as possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sally. Really appreciate it. And you guys, I'm going to start talking a little bit about our nonprofit certificate. If you have more questions, feel free to keep them coming. So Sally is going to be an instructor for our upcoming nonprofit management certificate here at Oregon State University. I'm really excited about this certificate. It's launching next week on April 9th. There's still plenty of time to register if you guys are interested. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the classes itself. So it is a 5-course series. You don't have to take the classes sequentially, so if you want to jump in and do one and then do another one a little later on, you're welcome to. Like I said, it begins next week on April 9th. Our classes are online and instructor-led, so we do get questions about this, and just to sort of clarify what that looks like. You're not required to log in at any particular time. Online means that it's asynchronous. You're going to be given a set of readings and lecture notes and videos to go over at the beginning of each week, and assignments that you'll be assigned. And then you'll have all week to go through the materials, ask questions, participate in discussion boards, and complete the assignments, but you can do it at your own time. So we have people from all over the world join us for these classes, which is really exciting. Each class is 5 weeks long. They're $487. And like I said, you can sign up for the entire certificate or for a class individually. And Sally is kicking off with managing the nonprofits, which is starting soon. What we've really been trying to do with the certificate program is build out curriculum that'll help, whether you're trying to get started and sort of thinking about some of the things that Sally was talking about, strategic goals, how do you build bylaws, and building a strategic plan, or if you're in a nonprofit and trying to work your way up and figure out how to impact your guys' mission. The nice thing about nonprofit work is that it is so mission driven, and you really get to engage with such a wide swath of your community. So a little bit about Oregon State University's professional and continuing education, just to give you guys background of what these classes are. Professional and continuing education, which we affectionately refer to as PACE, is the non-credit arm of the university. and it engages the community through educational opportunities for both personal enrichment and professional development. So we offer hundreds of courses and certificates, not only this nonprofit one, which are open to the public. You don't have to be a matriculated student. There's no application process. If you're interested, go ahead and look at our website, check out the content, and then you can register whenever you like. And our goal is to address educational, professional, and economic development goals for you or your organization. So we also do corporate training. We'll bring in people to your organization if you're interested in doing any kind of training as well. And like I was talking about, our programs are designed for working professionals, which is why we don't have any required login time. We know people are busy. A lot of the time they're working 40 hours or more a week, and they are trying to do these certificate programs for a career change or even for their own interest. And so we really do try and make them as flexible as possible, and we try to give them so that you have direct and immediate application to your work and experience. Our certificates are a great way to bolster your resume. So you will get an actual Oregon State certificate when you complete, but we also have started digitally badging a lot of our classes. So you'll be able to post your digital badge on LinkedIn or any other social media that you're interested in. We do have a really great learning management system that you'll be able to use, and you'll have discussion boards, so you'll be able to interact with other members of your class throughout as well, which helps to mimic that in-person aspect. And so we have another question that's come in. If we want to complete the whole certificate, do we need to pay for it all at once? No, you don't. You can pay for each class individually. Great question. And you'll still qualify for the certificate. So if you just want to register for one class at a time, that's totally fine. You'll still qualify at the end once you complete all 5 classes. So I am very excited about this certificate. I've been working on the development and the curriculum and sourcing instructors for a long time now. So I really hope that you guys will consider joining us. I would love to hear from you guys as to what your work is in the nonprofit world, whether it's here locally in Oregon or anywhere else around the world. I'm really passionate about the nonprofit field. It's really an important aspect of what we do, and it helps our community so much. So please feel free to reach out to me with any questions. If you have questions for Sally to hear a little bit more about Academy 360, you're welcome to shoot her an email as well. And like I said, webinar attendees will receive a 10% off coupon code, so you're going to get that in your email that you signed up with. Yeah, discount is awesome. We just got that. We really want to make this affordable and available to everybody. So thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you, Sally, so much for joining us as well. On behalf of Oregon State University, thanks, and go Beavs.